Now, to introduce our first speaker from our panel partner, Richard Bartlett, Senior Vice President at Future Mobility and Solutions at BP. Now, during Richard's 20 plus years with BP, he has held a number of operational, business development, commercial leadership, and finance roles. In his current role, he leads BP's next generation mobility businesses, including electrification and BP Pulse, also mobility services and hydrogen into transport. Richard's team is also accountable for growing BP's strategic mobility partnerships. As I say, do remember to send in your questions for Richard using the Q&A tab, and we'll put some of those to him very shortly. But before we get to that, Richard, a very warm welcome today, and I'm going to hand over to you to give us your insights on where we are at the moment with moving to electric vehicles.
Hello, fantastic to be here. Thank you for your opening remarks. It's an exciting vision, I think, that we're seeing here in front of us. And I've been recently most impressed by the recently published transport decarbonisation strategy that certainly gives us the pathway we need to move forward. So from aviation to shipping and of course electric vehicles, BP is leading the way. And can I start by asking a simple question today? Where are we today? I think the market is booming in the UK. Sales of EVs in 21 will be double 2020 and 4 times 2019. No OEM, as Sarah will likely testify, is having a problem selling EVs right now. BP operates more than 8,000 public chargers across the UK, including the largest number of high-speed chargers in the market. It's looking like BP Pulse alone will power around 100 million miles of zero tailpipe emissions in 21 alone. And just today, I'm proud to announce we've just opened a new ultra-fast EV motorway hub in Scotland, and that's 1 million more EV miles each year. So we're partnering with businesses from our EV hub on Park Lane for Uber and other commercial fleets, to partnerships with Didi in China, BMW Group and Daimler in Germany and elsewhere, and with VW. Sarah, delighted to be working with you and your company. But this is still a nascent market. We must not take consumer confidence for granted. If we do, we'll fail. So we have to step up. We'll need to deliver better customer service, which, full disclosure, is not proving as easy as demand is exploding. Industry reliability will have to go up too, from an average today of 90% to 99.9%. And we, amongst others, are investing millions in both service and reliability, so improvements are certainly coming. We'll also have to be honest, EVs aren't right for everyone today. The upfront cost can be higher, and it isn't as easy as filling up with petrol, something I know the minister has rightly said she wants to see. But we can also be proud that it works for so many right now. In less time than it takes for a cup of tea, a Kit Kat and a trip to the loo, you could get more than 100 miles of range for some EVs on our highest speed chargers. We have contactless payment and the ability to pay for charging without an app or an account. And of course, the total cost of ownership, once fuel savings are factored in, of an EV is already lower than the traditional vehicle for some drivers. But we'll need to deliver different charging speeds for different needs. It's not one size fits all. I'll repeat that because it's such a critical point we find. We'll need to deliver different charging speeds for different needs. It's not one size fits all. Drivers will need an ultra-fast charger if they're on the motorway, but not if you're at the cinema, or your car would be full before the adverts had finished. You'll need a 50 kilowatt charger or something slower in that case. And millions of new workplace and home chargers will be needed, which we're already delivering. And those without driveways will need reliable, affordable alternatives, of course. Ultimately, as an industry, we must be bold and innovative. It's our role to design, engineer, and above all, deliver. We must win the confidence of the consumer and of course government to deliver the vital infrastructure, but we will get there. Let's think for a moment about how we might measure success. It won't just be counting the number of chargers, that's for sure. It's not about the size of your network, but what it can deliver. Rushing to put in charging, regardless of the speed, into street furniture isn't the answer. If one of our ultra-fast chargers was charging for just 1/3 of the time, it would deliver about 1,000 kilowatt hours a day. A single lamppost charger would deliver just 40 kilowatt hours in the same amount of time. So local, regional, devolved and national government can think creatively about this, and in particular about land use too. There is land out there that could be reassigned and reprioritized for EV charging hubs. We won't meet the forecast demand otherwise. So we're going to be working closely with government on this, not just with Rachel and her colleagues in the DFT, but with BEIS 2, OZEV, of course, Downing Street, Treasury, and Ofgem. I want to end on the one piece of work we have to prioritize to drive progress and deliver consumer confidence. Firstly, many new chargers on public, private, commercial land, or even at home require new or upgraded connections to the electricity grid. This can involve complex negotiations with the DNOs and other parties. And as an industry, this element of the journey is going much, much too slowly, to the detriment, sadly, of the driver, or should I say the voter, minister, and industry. We must all do better here. Some EV charging points can take the best part of a year to install, and simply this just isn't good enough. BP is absolutely committed to working closely with the DNOs to drive the change. Just as BP is transforming its ways of working, DNOs, I'm sure, will transform theirs as well. In some areas, we may need government guidance on more helpful interpretations of existing obligations. And yes, legislation probably will be required too. On Saturday, I'm sure you all read that Ofgem announced a new approach to how grid connections for new charging hubs will be funded. This will need careful implementation, but it is certainly a welcome start. So this is about partnerships ultimately, and together we can get this right among some great panelists I'm joined with today, accelerating progress in British EV charging infrastructure, delivering a wave of innovation by British companies to export around the world, and above all, reducing the UK's emissions and carbon footprint, helping it meet its net zero targets. This is why I feel I have the best job in the world right now as we accelerate towards what I think is a brilliant and incredibly exciting EV future. Thank you so much for listening.
Richard, thank you very much. I mean, the questions are flying in for you. And I think as ever, whenever we talk about electric vehicles, charging infrastructure is absolutely central to all the discussions, isn't it? I love the idea that you measure charging efficiency by a cup of tea, a Kit Kat, and nipping to the loo. And contactless payment, accessibility is so important. The number of times I've had to download apps or fathom my way through complex mechanics just to try and work out how to charge my vehicle is bonkers. So I think that's absolutely key. Let me go to some of the questions then. This one here, as an EV user, we need EV charge points to be as available and reliable as all the Tesla supercharger networks. What are you going to do to ensure all pumps are available with that, and when will it be achieved?
Yeah, so it's a great question and probably one of the biggest pain points. I think if I look at BP Pulse, we've got 3 speeds of the network. We're focused very much on the ultra fast charging network, the rapid 50 kilowatt network, and then you've got the slower street posts of 7 kilowatts. And I think the key thing that we're committed to doing is investing significant amounts of money in upgrading all of that infrastructure, both the hardware, but also the software that interacts with the customer. So we recognize there's a lot more to do. I think this is a problem shared by many of the other players in the industry, but as I think over time you'll start to see the increased modernization of the infrastructure, you'll see more of it with much customer friendlier interfaces that will provide customers with the solutions.
What kind of timescale are you talking about? I mean, I know it's obviously an ongoing process, but
yeah, Rachel, we're already very much in action. So we're already investing millions of dollars this year in upgrading both the back-end technology that interacts with customers plus the hardware that you see when you charge your car.
Yeah. Another question here. ChargeMaster Polar and BP Pulse have been key to increasing EV adoption. However, recently reliability and support has dropped off significantly. So that's one point. And then I'll ask another question here, because I think it feeds into it as well. Gradual expansion of BP Pulse's customer support. Why is that not more effective? Given BP's vast financial reserves, it needs to be expanded faster.
Yeah, fully agree. So we're recruiting heavily in our customer service center based in Milton Keynes to deal with a 300% increase year on year in phone call demand into the call center. So the demand for the guidance around installations in the home, or how to activate their subscription to the platform. Plus also we're investing, as I said, heavily in new infrastructure that will bring the high reliability that you would expect from a company like BP, and it should parallel that of a fueling experience. So when you go to a BP today, as well as you visit the Marks and Spencers, you expect that seamless experience. That's what we are building that capability to execute here in the UK right now.
There's no doubt that BP is having to rapidly repurpose its function and indeed repurpose its image in a world of climate change and impending climate disaster. So we have a question here about that. Most consumers still equate BP with oil. It's in the name, British Petroleum. What is BP doing to shift this perspective? Do you envisage an electric only future?
No, so it's a great question. So I think different economies around the world are moving at different paces first. Okay, so I think that we're very much a company that's committed to a net zero future by 2050 or sooner. And as the strapline of the company says, we're reinventing ourselves. So we're investing heavily in new low carbon businesses that will ultimately deliver the net zero future. So if you look at the businesses my team leads through BP Pulse, our scale up plans are very significant. And if you look at markets like Germany and the UK, the car park increase of EVs is huge. It's much higher than expected. So will transport in the Northern European economies or European economies move to electric? I think it's absolutely clear, and with government support around Fit for 55 and so on, the transition is very evident. As I said in my opening remarks, I think the OEMs aren't struggling to sell electric vehicles at the moment. It's perhaps the ability to supply more.
Yeah, and you said yourself it's cheaper to power an electric car than it is to fill it up with petrol, diesel. So inevitably, if lots of people start transitioning to EVs, you will lose money, plus the massive investment you're putting into this system. Do you think it's therefore also inevitable that we're going to see the cost of electricity rising for EV users?
No, so I don't think it's a question of our income from fuels will decline over time. The income from electrification will grow over time. And if you see a lot of the real estate we have in the mobility business, we also have a very large convenience franchise. So the combination of convenience, the Marks and Spencers types offerings in the UK, combined with new electrification that meets the new car park and the customer needs, I see this as an opportunity rather than a threat. So we're going to transition to the new business models. We're already taking action. We're investing heavily, and I think the name of the game really is around how do we delight the customers with the experiences that they seek.
Massive to talk about. I mean, we could do a whole hour with you, Richard, but we will bring you back a little bit later on into the group discussion. Thank you so much for the time being. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rachel.